I want to go back and do one of the problems that was from the class in the 6.8, 6.9 day. It was one of the word problems that we didn't really have time to talk about much. We kind of skipped over and went to the geometry one because we were running a little low on time. So I want to go through this one now, and I'll give you a little bit extra practice working with your calculator, finding turning points on your calculator, and then interpreting what those turning points actually mean when you're talking about a real life problem. So in this particular word problem, we have an equation that's representing the price index of butter in a 6-year period from 2000 to 2006, given that particular polynomial. X is representing the number of years since 2000. It's asking us to graph the function and to figure out if we have any turning points from 0 to 6, and then trying to understand what is the meaning, what real life application do these turning points have. So when you have a problem like this, the nice thing is you don't have to come up with the equation, it's given to you. When you're doing a geometric equation, then you have to do a little more work to actually write the geometric equation. But for problems like this, it's already there. So your first step is to graph it in your calculator. So when you go to your y equals, you want to type in your entire equation into y1. Now, I already went ahead and did this, but really be careful, especially when you're dealing with so many decimal places, that you don't type something in wrong, because again, one number off or one missing decimal place will completely change the look, and you will be looking at a very different and a very wrong graph. So do a quick check that you typed it in accurately. Make sure everything looks good. The next piece with this, if you just hit graph, you're probably not going to see much because of your window. For example, let me show you. If I hit graph right now, there's my 10 by 10 window. I can kind of see a couple places where it crosses the x-axis, although that's not what the question's asking. It wants for turning points, and I can't see any turning points. So I need to adjust my window. Best way to do this is go to your window button and start looking at what we do know. When you look at this problem, it tells you right away that I'm only caring about the interval from 0 to 6. So that gives you a great place to start. In your window, I'm going to change my x minimum to 0 and my x maximum to 6. So I am just looking at that limited piece in the window. The next thing I'm going to have to change, so I'm going to have to change my y values. First of all, I can't have a negative y value because it is talking about price index, and we're not having negative prices. The y maximum can be a lot tougher to figure out where do you want to set it. Do you want to keep it at 10? Do you want to make it 50? Do you want to make it 100? One thing that I do sometimes to kind of give me a clue is I look at this y-intercept. I know that if I put 0 in for x, I get a y-intercept of 69.1, which means that is a point on my graph. So I'm going to make my y value be bigger than that. I want to make sure it includes that y-intercept. So I'm going to go up to a y-intercept of maybe 80, even up to 100 you could try, and see what I can see. Now, if I get a picture that still doesn't look very accurate, then I'm going to go back and tweak it a little bit and change my interval. Now, what I notice here is I can definitely see a minimum. I also see that it looks like it's kind of going up towards a maximum, although it doesn't really look that it actually hits the maximum at the far right end of your graph, but I definitely see a turning point right in the middle of the graph that looks to be a minimum. So I'm going to use my calculator button to find that minimum. So to review those steps, we go to the calculate menu, which is second and trace, and we hit minimum. You have to hit the right one you're looking for. You don't want to hit minimum and actually try to be finding a maximum. First, it needs to be on the left side or before the minimum occurs. So anywhere before the minimum occurs is fine. Hit enter. And then I need to be on the right side. So I can use my right arrow. I can also just pick an x value that looks like it's on the right side and just type that in. That would be fine too. Hit enter. It will ask you to guess. You just need to enter one more time. And it will flash on the minimum. It will say minimum down at the bottom of the screen, and it will give you the coordinates. So I'm going to write those coordinates down, and then we're going to have an interpretation of what that actually means. So my minimum is at 2.713. Again, try to get 3 decimal places to be pretty accurate. And my y value is 50.028 or 027. Now, if you want, you can try and go through and see if I do have a maximum here. I actually did this one earlier to check and see if I had a maximum, and the maximum actually doesn't occur on this screen. It happens after 6, and if you look at your interval, you only want to go up to 6, so it is not something that I'm going to count, so I'm not going to go through that. If it does look like there is a maximum, or if you're not sure, you can definitely use that maximum button, do the exact same thing we just did, and your maximum coordinates will appear at the bottom of your screen. So let's put some real-life meaning to these. We want to know what this means. Let's look at our equation again. X stands for the years since 2000. So this is saying about 2.7 years since 2000. So what that's telling me is it's 2002. It's actually in the second half of 2002 when the price of butter reaches its low price index. So that's when the price of butter would have been the lowest, where you would have been buying it at the grocery store for the cheapest amount. For your Y value, in this case, this is your price index. This is helping determine how they set the price of butter. Now, we don't know exactly what units, how much that is actually worth. It is just an index. It's not necessarily a dollar amount for a certain amount of butter, but it is where that price index is coming from. So the biggest meaning for you as the reader is to understand where did this low point come in the cost of producing butter, and that would be during the year of 2002. Now, you can see from the graph that the price of butter then started to go back up. So your graph really tells you about what's happening in this problem. It's telling you that your price starts up pretty high, and then it reaches a low point sometime during 2002, and then after that the price continues to go up, and once we get to 2006 at the end of my picture, it's looking like it's kind of starting to peak again. So that is what my picture means relating to the equation and the information that you found. So this goes through a problem. This would have been something we would have done in 6.8. The idea that we can use our calculator to identify turning points, and then we can actually find those turning points on our calculator.